This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Well, friends, hello. It is Dan Zare from Coffee with Kenobi. I am so excited to be here with you to talk to a New York Times best-selling author. She is one of my dear friends and one of the few people in the world that can get me tongue-tied where I can't know what to say. See, it's happening now. All my golden words are spent. It's AJ Wolfe, the author of Disney Adult, Exploring and Falling in Love with a Magical Subculture. AJ, welcome back to the show.
Hi.
How are
Dan.
you?
I am so great. How are you? I didn't realize that I had that power. That's exciting.
We talked about that when we were all at Ohana. And Deanna, my wife, was getting a big kick out of the fact that you were the only people that can get me flustered.
I was a lapu down at that point, so I don't remember too much of it.
There is nothing wrong with lapu. Look, I got to say, and I texted you when this happened. As soon as I saw you were a New York Times bestselling author, I was so incredibly happy for you. Like no one works as hard as you. Your passion in all things Disney and just what you put out into the world. So again, so I can say publicly, congratulations on being a New York Times bestselling author.
Thank you. I can die happy now. I am just beside myself because I never, ever thought that would happen. But the bottom line is this audience and this, these people that follow what we do are so incredible that they made it happen. They absolutely made it happen. So many thanks to everyone who bought the book.
Well, look, yes, that is absolutely true. But you have established for yourself for a long time, you are a go-to person that people trust about Disney. You're always very honest, but tactfully so, although don't quote me on that. And I think that, there's an ethos that comes into play when it comes to you. Where did you kind of start your journey? I know you've never talked about this before on a podcast. So just imagine, if you will, this is the first time. Talk about your journey into the world of Disney. And of course, you do talk about this a lot in the book, and people are going to have to read it to find out more. But go ahead and give us like a Cliff Notes version.
The origin story.
Origin story.
Well, it's like in Golden Girls when she's like, what does Rose say? It was back in St. Olaf.
Yes.
So it goes back to like 1982 Epcot, 1985 Epcot. That time frame is my first sort of memory of the Disney parks, and I consider myself a Disney parks adult.
Yes.
There are Disney merchandise adults, and there are Disney music adults, and people specialized in this particular arena. What do you specialize in? Do you specialize in anything? I don't think you're really an expert on much.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Still working on it.
Discuss.
Maybe toys. I see a lot of toys behind you.
That's exactly how I refer to them. Toys.
Yeah, toys. So I really became an Epcot fan when I was like 5 or 7 or whatever. My parents would take us down to the Florida coast for, we'd stay in a condo and go to the beach and whatever for spring break every couple of years. And we'd always do one Disney day. Back then it was just 2 parks. And we would do rope drop to fireworks, and it would just, that would be there the whole day. And I guess I fell in love with Epcot. I don't even remember Magic Kingdom. I know nothing about, I have zero memories of it. It's all Epcot. It's all like World of Motion and Universe of Energy and Horizons, and all of the great music that went along with that. My dad and I really bonded over the Epcot original background music and the songs from the rides, all those fabulous Fun to Be Free and the American Adventure, songs. And so we would, we bought the LP and would listen to it on the record player back home. And that's how old I am. But that was probably my origin story there. And then as I got older, I sort of kind of conned them into taking us back to Disney World when I was a teenager. And then when I got into college, I just started taking myself to Disney World, like solo trips by myself in college. And it was, and just absolutely became obsessed. So that's the origin story of Disney for me. Definitely a parks girl. don't really know. I couldn't win trivia about the movies or the music or anything like that.
Even now.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe I could, but not anything real niche. You know what I mean?
Sure,
like I could tell you the characters and the storylines, but yeah, I think, but parks, man, I can I can tell you about the parks.
I've been in the parks with you before, and it is quite entertaining, I will say. Look, I what I love about the concept Disney Adults, and I think you'll appreciate this. Last summer, I took my wife and I took our boys, who are now in their 20s, and their girlfriends, and then our youngest Mason, who of course you know, and we were walking around Epcot, your old stomping grounds, and my middle child's girlfriend said, "Dan is the ultimate Disney adult because he's having fun with it and he's showing us around, but he's not pushing us to do stuff." And I took that as a massive compliment, massive compliment. And then I opened up Disney Adults, which I was going to read anyway because you wrote it, and you introduced this idea, which shouldn't really be a surprise, but it is. The term Disney Adults can be a very welcoming thing that people embrace. It also can have sort of a pejorative negative connotation to it. And I don't think Disney owns the rights to that, to criticism and people not liking when other people have joy, unfortunately. But There's something very unique about it because it's the Disney brand, the Disney Corporation. And what I love about Disney Adults, I promise there's a question here somewhere. What I love about Disney Adults is that you dive deeply into the psychology and sort of the sociology of this. And there's a lot of research to back it up too, which I really appreciate. Talk about kind of what into that aspect of it.
Yeah. I was quite honored when my editor first read the first draft and said, "This is edutainment at its finest." Because
that's good.
Edutainment has always been used to describe Epcot. So I'm very happy that she considered it edutainment. But there is a lot. I really approached this as a journalist. I think that people who see that this book is called Disney Adults and there's a castle and balloons on the cover and it was written by, a Disney creator, that it's just going to be a fluff piece. That it's just going to be like, Disney's great and people who love Disney are great. And that's absolutely not what it is. It is 1,000% a deep dive, a journalistic look at the subculture of Disney Adults, how we became who we are and what we are, what that means for Disney as a corporation. Because I do think that Disney Adults are some of the most dedicated and passionate fans of any major corporation out there. And also I wanted to figure out for myself was, how do they manipulate us this way? Like, how do they do this that they can make me want to sit in a online waiting room for 11 hours on multiple devices, mind you, just to give them thousands and thousands of my dollars. I'm a pretty smart person, like relatively, I think I'm above average, but here, I know, questionable, but here I am just like, yes, please. Can I please just spend an entire day waiting to give you money? So how do they do that to us? How do they make us love this so much? Then we want to go back and ride the same rides over and over and over again. Because everybody always says, why would you already rode that? Why do you need to ride that again? I can't really explain it. And so I wanted to figure out why. So that's why I started talking to psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists and also researched for the book. LOL. No, that wasn't funny at all.
I think I will insert in post a rim shot.
Thank you. Not funny. But also talk to former Imagineers and try to find out, how do you guys approach creating this sort of thing in a way that will make perfectly rational people act somewhat irrationally about this place that they love so much.
So why do you say irrationally? I typically have heard in the past, didn't you just go there last year? Didn't you just go there like 6 months ago? Don't you want to go other places? And I do, and I have, and so do you, by the way. But there's something special about it. And one of the things you hit on in the book is it's tied into sort of like your first experiences and the association with family, combined with the fact that Disney, more than any other company in the world, I would say, knows how to appease the five senses to create those trigger experiences.
Yep. Absolutely. Everyone I mean, I talked to a lot of Disney adults for this book, including people on my team at Disney Food Blog and All Ears, and folks who were who follow us on social media, YouTube followers. You know, we have millions of people who follow along the work that we do, and so they were the perfect kind of folks to ask. And everybody I talked to brought it back somehow to how they had experienced Disney with someone they loved, right? And that could have been a spouse, it could have been a parent, it could have been a brother, a grandparent, whatever, a friend. But it always, when I said, what makes you love Disney so much? It was a broad question, but all I got were stories of this experience with somebody else. When I go here, it makes me think of my grandma who passed away, and I feel like I'm with her again when I'm there. Those sorts of things, right? So nobody ever said, oh, I go there because they have the best backpacks with the character I like. Like, nobody said that. So it goes back to your nostalgic feelings of experiencing something that Disney produced with someone that you love. And it goes back to what I keep saying in the book, like a main point of the book for me is that this isn't about your hobby. Your hobby isn't about your hobby. It's about how your hobby makes you feel. And so that is what Disney is for us. And that's another point where I think people can start to understand Disney adults a little better, is that everybody's got something that they love and that they will spend way too much money on, and that they will spend all their resources to get to, that they can sort of see the parallel. And when I say irrational, I mean, you were questioning irrational, it's that we're spending unbelievable amounts of money on this thing. And a lot of people do that for their hobbies. People do that for season tickets for the NFL. People do that for Taylor Swift, right? People do that for Star Wars. And it's this thing that we love that makes us happy and joyful. And so sometimes we get a little irrational about how we choose to allocate resources as a result.
Right. And another great thing about the book is that you break it all down. You explain the science and the psychology behind it. You're not judgmental about it, and because you're a Disney adult too, but you also understand, a passion or a hobby or a love or a fanaticism can in and of itself be a healthy escape, can be a positive thing, can bring, as we both know, can bring us into these incredible friendships and relationships, and we have these incredible communities. But also, as you know, Friar Lawrence says in Romeo and Juliet, the sweet taste of honey is loathsome in its own deliciousness.
Oh, wow.
Talk about kind of the balance there.
I'm sorry, the balance of what? I was caught up in the Shakespeare reference.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. No, the fact that you can have that fanaticism and that love, but you also very much acknowledge the fact that, look, you can go too far.
Right.
And it's not like we're empowering obsession, where it's more like, hey, this is a real thing. This can be a positive thing. And here are the good things that come from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do talk quite a bit in the book about Disney potentially being a drug for people, being something that they turn to escape their real life, to escape something they maybe don't want to deal with, which is how I treated it at the beginning, at the beginning of my sort of adult Disney passion, probably when I was in my 20s. Disney was very much me sticking my head in the sand and wanting to get away from, a life that I wasn't happy in. And so I ran up my credit cards to keep getting back to this place that brought me dopamine and joy. And so
you're in New York, right? You were living in New York?
I was in New York City. I had a great job. I was doing just fine, but it's just, I was at that quarter life crisis where I wasn't sure what I was about. And things were kind of falling apart all over the place. And that was sort of my escape. And so I did want to sort of, I talked to some Disney adults who have had to step away from Disney because of taking it a little bit too far, or spending too much money, spending too much time, loving it so much that it made them, sad, mentally ill, depressed. And so I guess what I sort of ended up, and again, I talked to a lot of therapists for the book about this, people who specialize in therapy, for like gamer addiction and addiction of this kind of thing, where you're escaping into this fantasy world. And something that I realized through talking to them was that there isn't an objective line of what makes it too much for everybody, right? There isn't, it's different for everyone. You just have to sort of look for the signs where maybe you're neglecting your family, you're neglecting your job, you're not able to pay, your rent because you're going to Disney instead. Those sorts of things are the objective ways to tell if it's getting a little bit too far. But something else I wanted to make sure to say in the book is like, you're not alone. We've all been addicted to something in our lives. We've all gone too far, over the limit of what is healthy for us, whether it's just that you keep checking your text messages every 5 seconds to see if that girl messaged you back or whatever. Like, there are plenty of examples of kind of unhealthy obsession with something. So the key is to not feel shameful or bad about it. Just be like, okay, just recognize it and pull back a little bit,
Right.
So that's something I really wanted to get across in the book, is like, you're not bad. Everybody does it. I don't care if they tell you that they don't, they do. So just recognize it.
Right. And then if that doesn't in fact get to that point, then you need to obviously do something to help yourself.
Right.
When it comes to Disney, you talked about your origin story, but what was your origin story for how this book and how it came together?
So yeah. Basically, I think that everybody thinks they know what a Disney adult is. Disney adults sort of came to the forefront. We've always been here. We've been around since 1928. But we came to the forefront online during the pandemic. Everybody went online, and the Disney adults sort of just became the butt of everyone's jokes. And you started to see a lot of viral TikToks and a lot of Reddit threads about Disney adults. There are in Anaheim and Orlando, you can go on dating apps and see that it says no Disney adults on several people's actual profiles. The term was coined like on Tumblr back in like 2010.
Okay.
But just for everyone to kind of know that they've heard the term and they have an opinion about those people, even though they don't know any of them.
Sure.
Since
became
like
mainstream.
Gotcha. Yeah, it became mainstream in 2020. And so nobody was really talking about Disney adults. They were just making fun of them. And so this became a great opportunity to really dive into a controversial topic. And like I said, instead of defending Disney adults, to really look at the stereotypes and recognize why they're there and what is it that makes this subculture tick, because it's a huge subculture. It's massive. Even if you don't think you know a Disney adult, you do. You know a Disney adult. It's probably your dentist, or it's your kid's teacher in this case, or it's like it's your congressman. I don't know, but like, yes, you know a Disney adult.
Definitely. And it's also like this great gateway to opening up a cool conversation about your love for Disney, because as you mentioned at the top of the show, it's not just the theme parks, it's movies, it's music. Although I feel like the majority of Disney adults, the book really is kind of more towards the theme parks, but not necessarily just Walt Disney World, but I think both coasts.
Yep.
And I suppose there are the Disney adult factions certainly occur overseas as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure that Walt Disney World has the most visitors.
Right. Walt Disney World has the most people every year for sure. But I think Disney has 8 of the top 10 visited theme parks in the world. So, it's everywhere.
Isn't that wild? And how much, what has the feedback been like?
Doing this book has been such an incredible boon, I guess is the right word, for this brand. And not because of why you would think. What's been really fun about this is that, I am a very private person. I stay behind the scenes. I don't show my face. I don't,
You kind of ruined that now.
I don't share a lot of personal experience in the brand because I don't feel like that is something that my audience has made the agreement I have with my audience is not to talk about myself. It's to give them good information and to share ways to kind of save money when they're at Disney and not waste their time on dumb stuff. Not to talk about me, who cares? But with the book, there is so much of me in it that, and again, it's not a lot. If you haven't bought the book, don't worry. It's not all about me. There's just like a thread, but there's enough of me in it that I felt like the book itself sort of changes that agreement a little bit and allows me to come forward a little bit more. So that's been really fun because I'm doing these book signings and I'm meeting people who have been following, our YouTube channel, our blog for decade plus. And that's just been such a joy, such a humbling experience and a joy. And it lets me actually see these people that I think about every single day,
Sure.
that I think about how can I make your life better? And I get to see them and they get to tell me how it's helped, which is awesome. So that's really good. I've really enjoyed that a lot. And I think it's been a benefit also for how my audience and I interact with one another. So that's been great.
Definitely. And I think with a community as large and as loyal as yours, I think it helps. And I think it's important to have a face there, a person there, an identity there that they know has everyone's best interest in mind, because it's very selfless what you're doing with the book. I really do mean that. You really are championing people and empowering people and letting them know that there's somebody that's driving the ship that really truly loves Disney, loves the community, and really does want good things to come from that. And so I think that's just a marvelous thing. And I think honestly that's a big reason for your success.
The thing that I've always tried, anytime someone comes up to me and says, how do I do what you do? How do I write a blog? How do I start a YouTube channel? The number one thing I always tell them is nobody cares about you. Like nobody cares what you think until you prove how you can help them or add value to their life.
Right.
And I feel like people make fun of me for saying that. They're like, oh, typical, nobody's a special snowflake. And I'm like, but it's true. Why would anybody care what I think until I can prove to them that I can make their life a little bit better if they do.
Right.
And so that's always been my job, is to lift the boats all around me, make sure that people see what they need to see and experience. And then, whatever benefit I get from that, awesome. But the goal is always to make other people's lives better. And then, the success will come from that.
Absolutely. So tell me about your writing process. Like, did you dedicate just blocks of time? Do you just hole yourself up in a cabin in the woods? And
I was just talking to my mom last night. I was talking to her about a flight I was taking to Ireland, and I'm on this flight to Ireland and working on the book. Right. And it's like that, this book was just sort of with me every second for 2 years. It was 3 years, really. I mean, it was and you know how it is. I mean, it's like your constant companion that you're like, well, I should be doing this at all times. Showering, taking a nap, anything that you're doing just for self-care, you're like, I should be writing right now. So my writing process, Dan, I've been writing the blog for 16 years. And of course I've written the DFB guides to Walt Disney World Dining and all of those guides that we have. But I'd never done kind of a long form nonfiction book in this way. When I was in college, I did a lot of essay. That was my master's degree, was essay and journalism and stuff like that. Never something like this. And I didn't know what I was doing. And so to do this book, it was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of me trying to scribble out some sort of schedule and then crossing it all out and starting over. And when it comes right down to it, I think that, writing a book is a lot like doing anything else that's worth doing, which is you just have to force yourself to sit down and do it. I always love hearing the anecdotes from writers who are like, yep, I just get up and I write 10 pages of something in the morning, because if I don't do that, then I won't do it, and that's sort of how it feels. So for me, the writing process was work my day job, which is Disney Food Blog, all day until, 5, 6, 7 p.m. and then get something done on the book and crash at like midnight. That was sort of how it went for 2.5 years.
I'm that guy too. I have like a word count for a project, and I literally do the math. This is how many words I have to type. This is how
many words I have to get done today. Yep.
And I do it when I wake up, I work out, make some coffee, eat some breakfast, and I write.
Yep.
And after doing it for over 1,000 hours, which obviously you have too, all kinds of writing, scholarly writing, stuff for online stuff for published, whatever. You just get to a place where you can suffer it, and you can agonize over every single word, or you can just make it happen.
Yeah.
You just have to do it because you can't edit a blank page.
Just all of the research that went into this book too, right? Like so many interviews. Just it felt like hundreds, and it wasn't, it was dozens, but so many interviews. And so all of those I had to reach out to all those people and schedule all those. It's not like I had like someone doing that,
Right.
So I had to schedule all of those, and then that person got sick, or we had to change it around, you know what I mean? So it's like all of that work, that admin work that goes along with it, was just a huge chunk that you don't game plan into that spreadsheet. You know what I mean? And then all of the other research, that had to go into it, just reading so many articles, so many, help, like abstracts, and and I was a psychology major, so I understand all of that stuff, but it's just like, just combing through and getting the right quotes and the things that are actually going to make sense in the argument, just so much of that. And so the writing piece was even secondary to making sure that you had all the backup information that you needed for a book like this. So that was, that was huge. And all of that extra, we call it biscuit time, like all that extra, like planning and scheduling and all of that stuff was a lot. And then transcribing all those interviews, getting all those transcribed, figuring all of that out. And then having to go through those interviews and pull out, because, of course I talk a lot, as you can tell. And some of those were, dozens of pages long, and you had to pull out the great stuff. And then it's just so heartbreaking, the stuff that doesn't go in the book, that you loved, the people that I talked to, that I loved talking to, and that I would have loved to put everybody in, and I couldn't put everybody in. Right. So there was that too, of like all of these relationships that I formed now that I couldn't kind of tell people about them the way that I would have wanted to. So maybe I'll have to do like an extra
from the vault.
Yeah.
AJ's version.
Because my editor, when I sent her the final version, she's like, you need to cut about 30,000 words from this.
Oh, that's a lot.
Which was so painful.
That's a lot.
So, yeah.
And it's hard. I tell my students, it's harder to subtract words than it is to add them.
Yeah. Really so much harder. Well, because you've structured a whole book around, and figuring out what needs to, so I ended up having to take out entire chunks of chapters, and it just, that stinks.
Well, I'm very fortunate and very blessed that you kept the parts with me in it.
Of course, all of my Kenobi Dan content is in there.
So let's talk about the Star Wars side of things. Star Wars is more of a recent thing to the Disney universe, but of course, to me, it's really important. And I was very happy that these two iconic companies merged together. And I think Lucasfilm is just in a great place because of the Disney umbrella. But what was the Star Wars section like? What are the things you had to consider when looking into the Star Wars thing? Because you're a Star Wars fan, but not necessarily ready to start your own Coffee with Kenobi show.
That's kind of you. That's true. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
So what was interesting about this book and Star Wars is that my editor is a massive, massive Star Wars fan.
Oh, cool.
She is a Disney adult through and through, and she is part of the Galactic Star Cruiser community, and a huge Star Wars fan. And so while I have a pretty significant section on the Galactic Star Cruiser in here, in a chapter that sort of talks about how the Disney adult community has affected the choices that Disney has made. Mm-hmm. There's also, looking at Star Wars and in how it is a part of such a huge, huge company, and how basically Disney owns so much that it's kind of impossible to realize actually how much Disney you're consuming every single day. Mm-hmm. But there is a very significant example of the Star Cruiser in this book, because I think it is extremely compelling and extremely important. And I probably could write a whole book about,
I was just going to say,
that whole situation and what happened there, and how I think Star Wars fans affected what happened with the Star Cruiser.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
Because it really did. It kind of, once they said we're closing it, suddenly it sold out. They all sold out. Yeah.
I honestly hope somebody does a PhD thesis on what happened with the Star Cruiser in terms of how social media affected the outcome.
Mm-hmm. And of course that's a massive part of this whole machine anyway, good, bad, and indifferent. Well, yep. AJ, this has been a great fun. Thanks for giving me so much to have to edit. Please let people know where they can buy Disney Adults, and tell us about where they can find Disney Food Blog. Of course, they already know, but it's always good to throw it out.
Yeah, Disney Adults you can buy it anywhere that you buy books. So Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble. I said that already. Lots of places. If you want a signed copy, we can do a signed copy for you. Go to dfbstore.com. You pay the same amount that you'd pay anywhere else. And I pull one of the books off the top of the pile on my dining room table, and I sign it and I send it on to you. So that is how you can get a signed copy for yourself or your Disney adult friend that you would like to buy this for Christmas and not have to worry about what to get them this year. You can also find me at Disney Food Blog on Instagram, TikTok, all of those. And of course, DFB Guide on YouTube.
And it always makes me happy whenever someone tells me that they're going to Disney World. One of the first things that always comes up is, I was watching this video on YouTube, Disney Food Blog, and this is what they told me. And I always get a big smile, like, oh, was it AJ? And then I get to say that I knew you, and
yeah.
What clout, instant clout for Dan.
That's right. Just ride on the coattails, Dan.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.